Two friends went into a forest they should have never entered. They found two paths and chose the one that felt wrong.
She turned around and something was already there.
When she looked at him, trying to save her, but something else was watching.
Ethan and Ava had been driving for hours, leaving the noise of the city far behind them. What started as a simple road trip slowly turned into something else, something heavier. The road grew narrower, the trees thicker, and the signal on their phones disappeared completely. Ava glanced at the GPS one last time before it froze. "That's weird," she murmured, tapping the screen. Ethan barely reacted. He was too focused on the road ahead, a faint smirk on his face, as if this isolation was exactly what he had been looking for. They eventually reached a rusted sign at the side of the road, half broken and barely readable. It looked like it once warned travelers to stay away, but time had erased most of the message. Ava felt a strange unease settle in her chest. "Maybe we should turn back," she suggested quietly. But Ethan shook his head. "Came all this way. Let's just check it out." Against her better judgment, she agreed. As they stepped out of the car, the forest loomed in front of them, tall, silent, and unnatural. There was no sound of birds, no rustling of leaves, nothing. Just a stillness that didn't feel right. The moment they crossed into the forest, the air changed. It felt colder, heavier, like something invisible had wrapped itself around them. At first, they tried to ignore it. They walked deeper, talking less with every step. Then they reached a split in the path. One side looked normal, clear, slightly lit, almost safe. The other was narrow, dark, and twisted, swallowed by shadows. Ava hesitated. "We should take the normal path," she said. But Ethan was already staring at the darker one, drawn to it. "That's where the real adventure is," he replied. And just like that, they chose the wrong path. The deeper they went, the more the forest seemed to close in around them. The light faded until it was barely visible, and the shadows stretched in ways that didn't make sense. Then Ava heard a faint whisper. She stopped walking. "Did you hear that?" she asked. Ethan looked confused. "Hear what?" The whisper came again, clearer this time, almost like someone calling her name. They continued walking, but Ava couldn't shake the feeling that something was following them. She kept turning back, but every time there was nothing there, until finally there was. A tall, thin figure stood just beyond the trees, barely visible through the fog. "Ethan," she whispered, her voice trembling. When he turned to look, the figure was gone. They tried to leave, but the path they came from had disappeared. Panic began to creep in. The forest no longer felt like a place. It felt like something alive, something aware. The whispers grew louder, surrounding them, overlapping until they became impossible to ignore. They weren't just random sounds anymore. They were speaking directly to Ava. At one point, Ethan moved ahead, trying to find a way out. For a few seconds, Ava was alone, and that's when it happened. The whisper came right next to her ear. She froze. Slowly, she turned and saw it. The figure was standing right behind her, up close. It was worse than she imagined. It had no face, no eyes, no mouth. Just a smooth, endless darkness where a face should have been. It leaned closer and whispered something she could barely understand. But whatever it said, it changed her. Her body went still. Her breathing stopped. And then, everything went silent. When Ethan returned, Ava was standing in the same spot, completely motionless. "Ava," he called out. She didn't respond. Slowly, she turned to face him. Her expression was empty. Then he noticed her eyes. They were completely black. "Are you okay?" he asked, stepping closer. Ava tilted her head slightly, studying him in a way that didn't feel human. "They're here," she whispered. Her voice didn't sound like her own anymore. It was layered, like multiple voices speaking at once. Suddenly, shadows began to move around them. They slipped between the trees, surrounding them without making a sound. Ethan grabbed Ava's arm, trying to pull her away, but she didn't move. Instead, she smiled faintly. "You shouldn't have come here," she said. The shadows grew closer, and Ethan could feel something pressing into his mind, like a presence trying to break in. He fell to his knees, clutching his head. The whispers were deafening now, filling every thought, every breath. Ava stood above him, watching calmly as if she was no longer afraid, as if she was part of them. Somehow, Ethan managed to fight it. He forced himself to stand, pulling away from the shadows. "This isn't real," he shouted, his voice shaking but determined. For a moment, everything stopped. The whispers paused. The shadows hesitated. Then Ava stepped back into the darkness, disappeared. Silence. Ethan was alone. The forest felt empty again, as if nothing had ever been there. After what felt like hours, he finally found his way out. When he reached the road, the world felt normal again. Cars passed by. The sky was clear. It was as if the forest had never existed. Days later, Ethan tried to move on. He told himself it was over, that he had escaped. But deep down, something felt wrong. One night, while walking alone in the city, he heard it again, whisper soft, familiar. Ava froze. Slowly, a faint smile appeared on his face, and in the reflection of a nearby window, his eyes turned.